Hey there, Max. Hope you're having a great day today. It's your video lesson. Bunch of stuff I want to talk about. I'll talk about a bunch of stuff, and as usual, if you have questions at the end, if you want to look at anything, feel free to shoot a message on over. I'll be in the studio until Thursday at 9 p.m., and then I might check my email in and out like during the holidays, but if you have questions, feel free to shoot over before then, and I'll just take a peek at it and see if I can give my 2 cents. So cool, man. So awesome. Going through our checklist, everything is looking good so far. A lot of good things about your playing. The scale looked like it fell nicely underneath your fingers. The sequence didn't look like too crazy stuff for you. So I'll give you the next step with that. And it's sort of time to talk about what I call guitar effects. And then what to do with that stuff other than just like you will practice your scales, young man kind of thing. I don't like that. So I'll show you what you actually do with the scales and with the guitar effects and the sequence patterns. And then we will talk about some finger independence drills for more interesting kind of like chord and strum riffs, or sorry, riff and chord patterns, like say like a la Neil Young kind of thing. Think like Heart of Gold kind of stuff. A lot like Tom Petty kind of things, like Last Dance, which is something we're probably going to do very soon. I'll talk about Ripple, the things I like about it and things that we can work on with it. And then I'll give you a new riff to work on over the break that combines the things I talked about in the earlier part of this said video, and then what our next moves are going to be moving into the new year. So let's get to it. And if I have to, I'll pause it and then just make sure I stay on schedule today. I might have to do a part 2 on this. We'll see how much I can get done in this first go. So awesome. So first thing with E minor pentatonic, great work on doing your 3 notes, doing your waveform sequence pattern. What I'd like to see you do is, I think in the video you did all downstrokes. I would like to see if you can do that with alternate picking. So I think I saw this all downstrokes. Just if you could, in the next video, if you could do alternate picking, if it's not something you've done before or want me to work with you with, I would be more than happy to do that. Just say in the video you would give me a cover alternate picking. If not, I'll assume that you already can do it. So the next pattern is going to be the 3-note sequence. So what that's going to look like is I wrote out the first section of it, and I'm assuming you probably could recognize the pattern after a few, well, my students can recognize the pattern after a few. I just write the first couple and then you kind of take over, do it forwards and backwards, obviously. So this is going to look like this: 0, 3, 0, back a note, 3, 0, 2. I go back a note, 0, 2, 0. Go back a note, 2, 0, 2. Go back a note. And continue that pattern up the neck. That's a really common one. I find going forwards isn't that bad once you kind of wrap your head around the pattern. Coming back down can get me a finger twister for some people, so I would practice going backwards twice as much as you practice going forwards. So 3, 0, 3, go back a note, 0, 3, 0. Nah, I messed it up. And the sky's the limit in terms of speed. So I remember when I was working out of my teacher's manual, before I had studied with him, I bought his book many years before I went to go work with him, and he had in his book, he had like metronome markings of like here's the speed. And I got to go study with him, and he's like, oh, there's just suggestions. Go as fast as possible, right? You find this patterns all over music, especially in like say, right, in country music kind of stuff. Right, you find it all over the place, which we'll talk about in just a second. So be able to do that forwards and backwards. Number 2, guitar effects. So what I call guitar effects are things that are not necessarily sequence patterns, but things that we as guitarists can do with our instrument, technique-wise. For example, the first one to give you is what are called hammer-ons. I'm sure you've heard of these before if you've been playing guitar for as long as you've been playing. What that's going to look like is this. I'm plucking the string and hammering with my left hand. And I'm just doing that with the E minor pentatonic scale, nothing fancy, just doing the scale that we already have, get a lot of mileage out of it. So when I do that, I start a little bit higher, I start a little high over the string, I'm over top of it, my finger is arched, and I am trying to land on dead center on the tip of my finger right here. And what I'm listening for is a clicking sound. That click sound is a string slamming against the fret wire right here. And there we go. So you can hear, here we go. I can do them slow with the ring finger too. So over top, I start a little high, and I slam that finger down. I do it. What I'm listening is when I'm doing it. I'm not just doing it blindly. I'm actually actively listening for, am I hearing the clicking sound or am I not hearing the clicking sound? So work on that part for me right there. And then what to do with that? What I would do is combine it with the 3-note sequence and then do a hammer on. It's going to look like this. 1, 2, 3, and then I do a hammer. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then a hammer again. 3, 1, 2, 3, hammer. Now, what is that all for? Is that these scales are used in improvisation. When you're hearing people jam and play solos and all that, all that kind of stuff, just straight up playing scales. That's all they're doing. And sometimes the scales can get kind of fancy. Say, like for example, like this one here. Right, I'm using a lot of different techniques, a lot of different theoretical techniques in that to basically play whatever note I want and make sure I'm landing on the right one, which we'll talk about later. So what I would recommend doing is first practice the sequence by itself, practice the hammers by themselves so they're crystal clear every single time. You get the scale memorized, you get the sequence memorized. And then practicing the stuff can be kind of boring in and of itself because it's not meant to be played like that. It's not meant to be just exercises and you do 3-note sequence and hammer-ons, right? What you do is you do them with backing tracks. Right? So I'm going to go to this app here. It's called YouTube. I'm sure you've heard of it. And I'm just going to type in E minor backing track. Right? And a plethora of backing tracks are going to pop up over here. Some I like better than others. But when I was younger, first starting out, all I had was this crappy Casio keyboard with a drum beat on it. And now these kids are spoiled with like fully produced backing tracks that they sound like they're in the studio. So type in E minor backing track, and here's what you're going to do with all this stuff. So I'm going to pick this one right here because it sounds nice. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to practice doing my sequence patterns. Right, you said in your response video that one issue that you're working on, that you would like to work on, is finding the groove, right? And this is great right here because it's going to prepare you for the jam. My hopes for you one day is that you're going to play with some buddies in the backyard, have some beers and the cookout, and guitar's going to come out, and you're like, hey guys, let's jam on Ripple. And no one's going to sit there and play all the chords the entire time, right? That doesn't happen in a jam. One person will play the chords, and one person's going to take a solo, and then you're going to switch off. So I have to make sure that you can do that in a jam song, so like Ripple or Mary Jane's Last Dance, stuff like that is going to be, or Wish You Were Here. Those are all like, when I show up to my buddy's house when we were like kids, when we used to show up and it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, this is what we did. We play the chords, someone takes a solo, someone sings, someone takes a solo, someone's playing the chords, and everyone's just switching off. And you have to be able to do that on the fly, which I'll talk about more later when I get to Ripple. And it looks like this is definitely going to be a part 2 video. So anyway, so practice with this, finding the groove of the backing track. Right, forwards and backwards. Right? Make a lot of 2 notes, right? And then what you do is you combine that with the hammer-ons. Right? But you can't just run up and down sequence patterns like this. So if I did this, right, this is not like shred technical metal or something like that. There is a place in this world of music for things that are just like relentless onslaught of notes coming at you at high velocity. That is a total thing. In this style of music, there is space. Think of it like talking, right? So if I just constantly just talk and talk and talk at you like I'm doing in this video because I'm trying to get as much information to you as I can in a short amount of time, you have to have breaks. The same way that if you're listening to someone talk, you have to have a break in their sentence, period. And then I have the next part of my sentence. And then I'm going to talk about this. And then I'm going to do this. So when I would stand in front of a classroom and talk, or a bunch of people and I would talk, I would always make sure to slow myself down and to put gaps in there so that way my students had time to take a note, or someone could think about what I just said, or if they want to interject with something else, if they want to interject, there's space for them to do that. So when you're doing this, you can get away with probably between 2 to 4 sequences in a guitar effect, like a hammer-on, before you're gonna start losing people, right? It becomes like okay, I get the idea, I get the pattern, man, I get it, right? So if I play that right there, I'm gonna start at the top of the scale right here. And let it sit. 2, 3, 4. Now I got a theme going on. Humans love patterns and themes. That's why these sequence patterns combined with guitar effects are so effective, is because they give your ear something to hang on to, and the guitar effect is that little twist in there that gets you out of it and go, oh, that was unexpected, I wasn't expecting that. Obviously when I was going up and down with hammer-ons, that was more of like a pedagogical kind of thing where I'm teaching you how to solo. So I don't give you like puke a bunch of things at you all at once. You get the sequence and then one guitar effect. When you master that guitar effect, you get another guitar effect, and we just rinse and repeat until we go down my huge list of different things that you can do in soloing. So put the backing track on. You can also use a backing track for ripple. It'll still work with this. So guitar over. You can use the backing track for ripple with this, and we're going to talk about that more, why E minor pentatonic works over the top of a tune that has a bunch of G chords in it. We'll talk about that. So work on that part for me. So improvisation. So you have a set of parameters to kind of backtrack for a second. So improvisation and soloing, you have a set of parameters. E minor pentatonic, what sequence am I going to use? I'm going to use a 3-note sequence. What guitar effect am I going to use to break the sequence? I'm going to use hammer-ons. I've created a set of things that I'm going to follow, and you practice doing that set of things, and you do that for a enough period of time, then you start kind of getting like a lick bag, or things that you kind of just do, your own style. And then that way when you're jamming with other people and it's your turn to take a solo, you can stop the chords and move right into the jam, into the solo part, and then you can turn that off and go right back into the chords. Here's another thing to remember too. Everything that is fast has been rehearsed, right? So when you hear things that are played fast, you hear Billy Strings soloing or something like that, all that stuff has been worked out way ahead of time, right? It's like anything else. The concert you see, when you see the band go up there, that is the end result of a whole lot of hard work. The same thing with hearing people solo and jam is I go, wow, man, Duane Allman must have been awesome at soloing right away. And the answer is no. He would practice his scales and his guitar effects all day. He'd go out and listen to a concert, come home and try to emulate what they're doing. We'll talk more about that technique later on. So be able to play this at a higher speed. So don't just run up and go, okay, I got it. Try to play it faster, right? And we'll talk about how to get speed up for next time. Cool, let's talk about one more thing. I'm gonna pause the video and then I'll come back and then finish up the second half of the video for you. So next thing is a finger independence drill, right? One thing that happens in a lot of these songs is there'll be like a little bass riff and then chords immediately thereafter. So one thing I like to practice is taking a chord like G like this right here, right? And it's just purely an exercise. It might sound good, it might not sound good to your ear, but remember, it's just an exercise, is to get these guys to do their own thing while these are planted on the guitar. So once someone has these open chords down and they get the bar chords down, now it's time to start having some finger independence with those chords. So I take my first finger here, I take my first and second finger off. This guy's still parked on here. These are still on strings 1 and 2 on frets 3, right? Same as the G chord right here. Now I'm just gonna walk up the strings. 0, 2, 0, 2, 0, 2, 0, 2. Back down. 2, 0, 2, 0, 2, 0, 2, 0. I'm gonna switch over here to the middle finger now and go down the 3rd fret. right? You can do it with hammer-ons. So if you found hammer-ons to be easy in the previous exercise, just because I haven't been in the same room with you yet to run you through your paces, pull-offs, we'll do this later on. I'll probably do that to you today. See on top of Doug. So there I'm doing hammer-ons. Sound familiar? Right. You find that stuff all over the place. CSNY and all the different the different versions of that band, whether it's Neil Young by himself or Crosby, Stills, Nash, or whatever. Anything Americana is going to have that. Tower Childers has that kind of stuff in there, which we'll talk about. That kind of stuff. And then I'll go ahead and talk about point number 4 right here. The intro riff for Ripple. Nothing crazy, right? Start with the G chord here. I have these 2 off, right? Because we had that exercise we had just a second ago to prepare us for this. And I'll talk about that strum when I come back from teaching a few more students, and then I'll have some time at the end of the day to finish up the video for you. But we have this. 2, 3, 2, 3, 0. Cool. So I'll pause right there. I'll come back and give my 2 cents about Ripple, a new riff for you to work on that uses the stuff that we talked about earlier in the video, and then our next moves, and then we'll go from there. All right, see you in a little bit.